So I'd like to welcome everybody to this session on data skills and AI for society. The purpose of this session is to try to have an interactive conversation between a very interesting and exciting set of panelists, but also with the audience as well. So one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that the participants in the room interact as much as possible. So the way to do this is to use the Whova question and answer chat. So if you go there, you'll be able to see specifically for the session, you're able to raise questions and to ask questions from the panelists. So we very much encourage everyone to go log on to Whova, log on to the Q&A for this session, and we'll be monitoring that over the duration of the session to try to get some interactivity with the panelists and with the audience. So let's have a look. So first of all, we would also like to thank all of the sponsors of EBDVF. Without them, it wouldn't be possible to be able to have this event. So thank you all very much. All of your beautiful logos there for supporting us. And I'd like to, first of all, introduce myself. I'm Edward Curry. I'm a Vice President of the Big Data Value Association. I'm also a researcher at the Insight Centre for Data Analytics at NUI Galway in Ireland. And I have Ernestina is my co-chair. Ernestina, do you want to introduce yourself for 10 seconds?
Okay, I am Ernestina Menasalvas. Thank you, Ed. And I am professor at Universidad Politecnica de Madrid. And I am also leading the Task Force 9 on skills on the BDVA. Thank you, Ed.
That's great. Thanks, Ernestina. So myself and Ernestina work together in the BDVE project, which is one of the key projects that we have for trying to organize some skills activities around the big data PPP. So Ernestina will be also monitoring one of the, moderating one of the panels later on as well, and she'll close the session. So first of all, we're going to kick off with our panelists. Here are our set of panelists here. I'm going to very briefly just introduce each of them so you know who they are. And then in our first question, I'll ask them to give us an opening statement. So I'll just run through the introduction of each one here. So we have Artur Romão from DECSIS. He's the Director of Innovation and Development at DECSIS. He's the co-leader of one of the subgroups within the Big Data Value Association that specifically focuses on innovative business models and technologies developed by SMEs and entrepreneurs. We have Mary Cleary from the Irish Computer Society. Mary is interested in education. She's a long life learning advocate. She's into IT professionalism, the championing of that. She's an e-health adoption supporter, public speaker, guest lecturer, author, professional development strategist. She sounds like somebody we all should know, absolutely. We have Niels van der Linden. He is from Capgemini Invent. He's a senior director there, where he is the EU lead. He supports public organizations in their digital transformation journey through measuring performance and accelerating policy implementation. And Niels oversees projects at the European Commission related to skills and digital governments. We also have Rocco Defina from OXYS Computing. Rocco is a consultant and he participates in the ICT curriculum guidelines based on the e-competency framework. He's a specialist on digital transformation, organization design, performance management, executive training, empowerment, and digital competencies. And then we have Silvia Merisio. She's from DG Connect. She's a policy officer there. She looks at things like the digital economy. She works in the digital economy and the skills unit. She has a background in economics and international relationships, and she's dedicated to the EU Commission for the last 10 years. So she's a lot of experience in this space. So we have a really interesting panel. They're coming from lots of different areas, from large companies to small companies, to people who are interested in digital skills, to people who are interested in AI and data skills. So we have a nice mixture of people. And what we're going to do is to maybe set the scene a little bit about what we're trying to focus on today here. So the way we're going to break down the session is for the first couple of minutes. I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to the challenge that we have around these skills for AI, data, and robotics. And then we're going to have two questions that the panel are going to discuss. So the first question is from grandparents to entrepreneurs. Is European society ready and prepared for AI and data-driven innovation? And we'll have a set of opening statements from each of the panelists on that. And we very much encourage the participants in the room to ask some questions as well. And then Ernestina will chair or moderate our second question, looking specifically at the experiences that we've had at including technology into curriculums, the role of computer science in primary and secondary schools, high school education, and trying to understand what kind of lessons can we learn from trying to proliferate computer throughout the educational system. Can we learn from those lessons to do it better with data and with AI? And then we'll have the closing at the end from Ernestina. So the objectives of today are to discuss this challenge we have around the evolving nature of data skills and the challenges with big data and the use of AI. What we want to do is to enable this group of stakeholders from different disciplines to talk about these challenges and opportunities that exist. But we also have a job of work to do as well, because the conclusions and the discussion that we have here can actually feed in to some concrete actions that this community is working towards. So specifically on the partnership and AI, data and robotics, skills is in there as one of the key things that needs to be tackled together in that PPP, or sorry, in that partnership. And this is an opportunity for us, as we have a number of people in the room that have actually contributed to the strategic research and innovation agenda on AI, data and robotics. This is an opportunity for us to discuss that and to maybe tease out some ideas of what that partnership could do and what are the challenges that are there with that, and the opportunities most importantly. So we have our chairs. So what makes a data scientist? I showed these slides because there's a bit of a there's a complexity associated with the skill sets that we're seeing now. The technologies that we have are fantastic, they're beautiful, but the people that actually are needed to use these technologies have to be multi-skilled. They're no longer just technical people, but they need to have backgrounds in mathematics and statistics to understand the data. They need to have their programming skills, but they also need to have domain knowledge, understanding how companies work, how organizations work, how society works. And they need to have communication skills. They need to be able to visualize the output and communicate that insight that they're deriving to the user as well. So the modern data scientist is a very, very highly skilled individual. And this is an analysis by PwC. There's many other analysis as well that just looks at the level of skills that are required in so many different areas for these individuals. And this is really challenging and maybe even very daunting for individuals to look at this. The notion that if you find a data scientist or a person, an individual that can do all of these things, they are the ultimate unicorn. You know, this is what we see ourselves when we're talking about these rock stars that exist, have all these beautiful skill sets, can analyze the data, can get you the insight, can understand your business, can communicate it to you. Incredibly daunting. When we look at these people, there was an article in the New York Times, this is maybe about 2 years ago, and they talked about, well, you know, you have all these tech giants, they have all these rock stars, they're paying them incredible amounts of money, and they identified that there's maybe about 10,000 people in the world that actually could fall into that category. So if we're talking about AI and data and transforming the world, if there's only 10,000 high-end jobs for the entire planet, I think we're in a little bit of trouble. So this is, we'll say, the top end of the story. But we do know that this has to evolve. This isn't just the end destination, but rather it's the starting point. So let's maybe take a little bit of a step back. Okay, we've heard of these rock stars before, and back in 1980, this guy, most people didn't know who he was, but this was Bill Gates in 1980. He had all of those kind of traits, and that was what we thought a computer programmer was. They were actually quite mystical. We didn't know what they had in terms of their skill sets, but we knew whatever it was borderline magic. It was wizardry that they were doing. And the people that were tackling this at the time, in terms of computing, they were highly educated, university degrees. A lot of them had PhDs in mathematics, etc. But in the preceding 30 years, this notion of a programmer evolved from the Bill Gates of the world to what we started seeing people who could program in 2010 with things like Scratch and tools. And the evolution is that, well, actually programming wasn't that complex. There was an evolution of the technology, and there was an evolution of the skills that are required. And suddenly we could actually teach our children to program logically, following control structures with the appropriate tool and with the appropriate context. So we're not always going to be existing with the notion that there's only 10,000 people that can be an AI researcher. But there will be an evolution, and we're at the start of this evolution, and we can learn lessons from that. The first one being, will it take us 30 years to do this? I hope not. I really hope not. And that's maybe part of our conversation today. Another interesting thing is that nerdy guy from 1980, actually, you can go online and he will tell you how to program using Scratch on YouTube, which is quite interesting as well. So there's an evolution there too. So the purpose of this panel is to look at, we've got our unicorn today. How do we make this a little simpler? And can we do it a little bit faster? Can we give those skills that are required to be a data scientist, to be technically, digitally literate in 2020? And how do we actually move this forward so that we can have more accessibility to those skill sets, and we can have more accessibility to the technologies as well? And that's maybe what we're going to start talking about in our first question. So we're going to kick off our panel. And this is really to talk about the broader perspective. We're not really interested in the unicorns anymore. We're interested in everybody else, from grandparents to entrepreneurs. What are the skills that we need? Not everyone's going to need to have a PhD in computer science or in data science or in robotics or AI. So that's the kind of purpose of this panel, is to tease out these questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Artur. And you, Artur, you have a lot of interest in entrepreneurs, in SMEs, small organizations. What do you think of the challenges that they're facing? What's your perspective on that and your insight?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed and Ernestina, first of all, for inviting me to be here and to having me here. I would start by saying that I was worried again when I saw that slide of yours with that robot full of money, and that's exactly that. I mean, entrepreneurs and SMEs don't have the resources to pay fortunes to one of those 10,000 unicorns that are out there. So we need to strive being more creative than that, and it's having to do things that it's not all about the money. But anyway, of course, innovation in what we do, in what small companies do, is something that I think is still attractive to people, at least to young people that still want to change the world. Anyway. Well, I guess that's it. It's the great difference is the lack of resources that smaller companies have when competing to big ones. So the creativity is key here. And just let me tell that before joining this panel here, I was in a jury of the pitching contest in the previous session. And there were 10 small companies, 10 startups pitching and showcasing their data in AI-driven innovation. And if I take the outcomes of those pitches as an indication of the capabilities of small companies to innovate, I think that there is a good indicator that Europe, because we are talking about Europe here, Europe is very much ready to innovate and to ride this wave on top of AI and data. But this is the supply side. I mean, we are talking about companies that are developing solutions and software and services. There is also the other side of the coin. There is the demand side. And if I still think about SMEs, which represent roughly 99% of the number of companies in Europe or so, they are still catching up, I would say. The level of awareness from the average business manager in Europe, I would say it's okay, it's reasonable. But there is a lot to do in order to make people realize what is the value that they can extract from data and from AI. So that's something we have to look seriously into that. And I take this opportunity to let everyone know that at BDVA we are developing a survey right now that I hope comes online until the end of the year, where this level of awareness, what SMEs can expect and can and can extract from data and AI is the main focus of that service. So if anyone is interested, then please contact me afterwards, and I'll be happy to share. Well, this is what mostly what I my view on SMEs which is basically the sector that I'm representing here, or trying to represent. Of course, if we are talking about society, there is also people, there is also the citizens that are more and more aware of the value of their data, of their personal data. Which also opens up lots of opportunities for new businesses as well around this issue, and this leads me to think about, well, two important pillars that we have in Europe that are at the foundation of what I'm saying. It's and I don't need to go into details here, which are the European values, very much citizen-centric, I would say. And also our tendency for regulating almost anything. So we have to take care that these two pillars are enablers rather than barriers to innovation in the special case of AI and data.
Okay, thank you very much, Artur. I'm going to ask Niels next about these larger organizations, and I see you have a lot of expertise in digital transformation. What are the skills challenges that exist in that space?
Thanks, Ed, and thanks for inviting me to the panel. Well, my interest and the things I would like to bring are basically twofold. It's professionally and personal, but you asked indeed to give the view from a large company.
We're interested in both, though.
Exactly. I'll end with the latter, though. I mean, we are Capgemini is a big IT consultancy firm, an engineering company, and we help a lot of organizations, public and private, to invent what's next, as we call it. And AI and data are very important elements there. We also do a lot of research in that field to really understand what clients need. A couple of the things that are really interesting to bring to also this discussion, I think, is that it's not easy to get value from, for instance, AI or data. And it's, I guess, the reason for that is twofold. So one is, of course, we need more data scientists, really the specialist people who understand the technology, can design it, implement it, and so on. But the research also shows that that alone is not enough to really get the value from it. So in the company, there's also a lot of people that are supposed to use the AIs or the data models that are produced by the specialists, and that's where most of the times also a lack of skills comes in. And if people do not understand the things that were developed by those brilliant AI and data specialists, it's still very difficult for companies to create value. So I think that is one thing. The other thing, something we've seen also, and also in a more recent project, that if you talk about adopting technologies like AI and data, it's not just about starting a training or a course to skill people, but it starts with a broader idea or a strategy of the company. How can these technologies bring value to our company, to the business model? And from that perspective, plan your way forward. That will be the second point. And the third is around everything related to the ethical implications of AI and skill people in understanding the consequences and potential bias that algorithms can bring, as to keep it all transparent, accountable, and so on. So those three things from a professional perspective, I think, would be very important. But also personally, I mean, I'm a father of 3 kids. I see my kids on social media every day, and I always try to ask them, do you understand why you see what you're looking at, or why you listen to certain music, how those algorithms behind that work, and what are the skills that we can also teach them in order to not only understand how it works, but also to think critically of those things, because in the long term, I think that's important to establish as well in our broader society. So we're here. Thanks, Ed.
That's great, Niels. Thanks very much. On that personal note, the amount of people have told me that tell me that the algorithm on Facebook has changed and now their feed has changed is incredibly high. I never knew that so many people were interested in the algorithm that actually sorts the feed on Facebook, but it's a hot topic out there. Fantastic. So Mary, we'll go to you next, and you're kind of coming from a we'll say a broader perspective in terms of digital skills and looking at competency frameworks. I'm wondering what's your thoughts on this? What's the insights that you can bring to our chat here?
Okay, well, thank you very much. And indeed, I'm delighted to be here and able to make a contribution to this. Going back to your own slides, Ed, at the very beginning, you mentioned and you showed us a picture of the youngster doing the Scratch programming. And in fact, today in the University of Limerick in Ireland also, the national Scratch programming finals are taking place. And I was, just before we started this panel session, I was actually addressing that group of young people and the judges, etc. So that kind of activity is alive and well, and it really does have an important role to play, I think, getting young people involved at an early age. And that also feeds into Niels' concerns too about youngsters understanding those algorithms that you mentioned as well. But as you introduced this debate and this discussion, you talked about the grandparent and the entrepreneur, and that the skills and the ability to take advantage of AI and data science and all that can bring to society is equally important to both of those. So we're not only talking about IT professionals, we're talking about all of society. And I think that, the digital literacy for all of society is really very, very important in that regard. Very often that's forgotten. The broad base of the population who are going to be the consumers of the technology do get forgotten when we talk about skills and the skills gap and the skills problems. So that's one element that has to be addressed. But when you look at the entrepreneur, and we've talked a little bit about big business and about small business, but there is across the board a serious gap in the skills that are available for us right across all of the IT domains. And data science, the individuals who work in data science, they are IT professionals. They're just one brand of IT professional. But across the board, there's a constant gap of about 500,000 people to take up skilled positions. So we have a serious shortage. In Ireland, our small little country with a population of 4.5 million, we've a rolling 12,000 vacancies every single month. And when you bring it home, it makes an impact. So in being prepared for all of this, I suppose in Europe, we're probably not any worse prepared than any other part of the world. But we do have to recognize the gap, this big number deficit that we have. But we're gradually we're learning how to adapt quickly and to make strides in finding newer and more agile ways of upskilling and developing professionals. So we look at developing people into the career. So doing things like, working with kids and teaching them how to program in Scratch in the hope that they will get a little bit of interest and excitement, and that they will perhaps be interested in pursuing a career in IT, possibly data science, who knows? But that's, the pathway they choose within the overall IT sphere, and there are many of them, and there are lots of reasons why they would choose one over the other. So we look at students and encouraging them and bringing them in at undergraduate level. We also have to look at people who are currently already in the workforce and who are perhaps in jobs that may be starting to become redundant. There are many jobs that have been lost during this COVID situation that may never come back, because we're all changing the way in which we work. So there are opportunities for upskilling people and reskilling people to move into IT with lots of relevant qualifications, be they in the mathematical area or in other scientific areas or not. There are lots of people who have the potential to be extremely valuable IT professionals. But we have to make sure that people who work in the IT industry, these professionals, do have some quality assurance standards applied to the work that they do in terms of their knowledge and their skills, and in terms of being able to work to an ethical framework. And to formalize this, a lot of work has been done at a European level around professionalism and establishing an IT profession. We have agreed, I think, on a broad basis that there are 4 pillars of professionalism and in general, but also of IT professionalism. And they refer to competences as outlined in the European e-competence framework, which was mentioned already, bodies of knowledge, codes of ethics or ethics frameworks, and education and training and certification. They're the 4 pillars that underpin any profession. But because IT is not a regulated profession, these aren't imposed on people who are working in that sphere. And regulation was mentioned, I think, was by Artur as being something which we are very good at in Europe, but IT is not regulated. People who work in IT aren't regulated, I should say. So that's something that we need to pay attention to. But the European Commission has had a skills agenda and has had a lot of research and implementation work going on for well over 10 years. And working alongside with SEN and with the Technical Committee 428, in particular, Digital Competences and IT Professionalism, this work has been developed and a lot of effort and expertise has been brought to bear on putting together standards and standardized documentation around professionalism so that we can give it an air of regulation, even if it's not actually regulated. So IT professionals really self-regulate, I think. And so we need the industry and the wider economy to recognize that, to see that, and to afford them the same recognition and esteem that is given to other professions. And that will enable us to bring those young people in, to show them that this is something to be proud of, that if you come into this profession, that it's something that will give you a standing in society, and that's just as important as the actual outputs of the work that they do. So that's really what I wanted to say. There's just one final point I wanted to make, and this is the notion earlier on. You also said, Ed, about soft skills, about the multi-skilled professional, and I think those soft skills are really just as important as the domain knowledge. The soft skills are kind of the basis, and they're persistent, but they're applicable across the board, no matter which specialism somebody works in. The domain knowledge, the ways of learning and developing that, they're transferable skills, and they can be adapted. And technology changes so quickly that we have to be able to adapt and to develop those domain skills as people move through their careers. Thank you.
That's great, Mary. Thank you very much. I'll move on to Rocco to give a little intervention as well. Rocco, I know you've been involved in some of the things that Mary's talked about there in relation to curriculum and to competencies. Well, what's your perspective on this? What would you like to add?
Yes, thank you, Ed, and thanks for inviting me. I would like to try to answer your question, starting with something personal I would like to share, because I think it's important and it's the first step, and it is about recognizing the importance of this kind of IT professionals, AI and data professionals. When I am a business consultant, I'm an IT passionate. I started to code when I was 13, not Scratch that time, but 8-bit processor coding. And I fall in love with the coding at that time in 83. I have this book here. I found this more, the operating system of Commodore 64, and I was very excited. What happened when I turned 17? I had to go to universities, and I decided to study economics. I was in love with IT, but I studied economics. Why? Because I had this willing of becoming someone important. So the IT guys are in the basement of the building. I want to be a manager. I don't want to be an IT guy. And that's why I forgot the IT and I went for economics. And I spent the majority of my career in business, in consultancy, without touching IT. And only in the last 7 years, I started with Niels van der Linden here with a project on IT. Why I'm saying you this? Because if we have only 10,000 unicorns that are required, that are able to get some value from AI and data, we have to recognize that 10,000 unicorns are important. So I think we are in this direction. And to your question, is European society prepared for AI and data-driven innovation? I think we are in the right direction, because we are starting to recognize the importance of these professionals. Mary already mentioned the big European effort that Europe is making in fostering the IT professionalism in all the 4 pillars. But I really believe that the first key step is in recognizing the importance of these professionals. They need to earn money, they need to be recognized, they need, because IT, and especially AI and data is important for society, and the IT people needs to be recognized as important for companies and for society. So we are in the right direction. It's not anymore today as it was when I was 17. The other aspect I would like to focus my attention is about the capability of being an entrepreneur that is mainly connected to lifelong learning. Because everybody knows that lifelong learning is about the need to keep learning all the time in your life. But this is not the main aspect of lifelong learning. The main aspect is to be the main and maybe the only owner of what you need to learn. So it's important that to be, if you want to be an entrepreneur in this field, it's important for professional to be aware of the professional path and to be in charge of personal development. So this is the path. You mentioned a project I am leading with is a project with SEN on ICT curriculum guidelines. That project is part of this European effort to standardize. And I see this interesting combination of standardization and personal freedom and awareness and capability to design your own future. So if this balance is going to work, I think we are on the right path.
Thank you very much, Rocco. Some very nice contributions there. So I'll hand the floor to Silvia, who works in the Commission, and you're very much involved in the policies around skills as well. Silvia, maybe you can give us a little bit of insight into what the plans are from the Commission's perspective, and your own thoughts as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the interesting remarks. It was very enriching. I'm happy to hear that many of you think that we are on the right path and we are improving and we're progressing. I have to say that the picture that we look at now, I work in the unit that develops the Digital Economy and Society Index. This index monitors a bit the performances of the member state towards digitization in different fields. One of this is the measure of human capital, so the measure of digital skills in the EU member states. Of course, there we have differences among member states, but the picture we have at the moment is not very happy picture, as we have 43% of Europeans not having basic digital skills, which means that in a period where everything is connected, we saw the vitality, the crucial importance of digital services during the lockdown. This implies also a risk of social exclusion. If we add to this that also people that are in employment, people in the workforce, they also do not have these basic digital skills. There the percentage drops at 35. but it's still not optimal if we think that almost all jobs require some sort of digital skills. Then it was already mentioned, of course, the shortage of people with more advanced digital skills, such as ICT specialists. There is one data that strikes me, which is that 50% of companies looking for ICT experts, they report difficulties in finding them. It means that it's hard to find them, and this is across the board. This is really common to all member states. So yes, there is still a lot to do. I'm happy to hear that there is positive thinking. There is much that is already being done. Mary has already mentioned the skills agenda. The skills agenda is a revision of an important strategy of 2016. There, the Digital Skills and Jobs Coalition plays an important role. It's a multi-stakeholder partnership with national branches, and these partners, they make pledges. So not only the effort by the Commission, but the effort by every single stakeholder counts in improving digital skills at different levels. Of course, BDVA is a member and a pledger of the Digital Skills and Jobs Coalition, and the Irish National Coalition is also very active in promoting digital skills. It's also very active in promoting advanced digital skills. I want to mention here another activity which is run by the Commission, in particular for advanced digital skills, which is the coordinated plan for artificial intelligence. This is a joint effort between European institutions and the member state to advance in the artificial intelligence uptake and in being more prepared for an AI society. Their member states are asked to draw up national strategies, of course, including a talent dimension and a human capital dimension. And there they set out strategies on how to improve the education system, for example, by introducing computational thinking since primary schools. We have seen the picture of the child coding. This is what we want to encourage. Another element I wanted to signal here is a new program. Of course, if we have big ambition in the skills agenda, we say that we want to train 70% of EU citizens with at least basic digital skills. In the big data strategy, we say that we need to improve and increase the number of data scientists. We need to match these political ambitions with funding. And we will soon start the new cycle of EU budget 2021-2027. There is a new instrument there, which is the Digital Euro program. You might have heard about it. It's a smaller program compared to the research program. It had a proposed budget of 9.2 billion. It was cut a bit. Now it's around 7.5. And there is a dedicated part for improving advanced digital skills, among which, of course, big data skills and artificial intelligence. The idea is really to fund and support cooperation between higher education institutions, SMEs, companies, businesses which are innovative, as well as excellence center in AI and big data to devise and deliver together training opportunities that can really train the digital talent pool of tomorrow. So I really encourage you to take a look at this program. It's the Digital Euro program, and new opportunities will be available as of next year. So I will conclude immediately by mentioning the Recovery and Resilience Facility. This is a really exceptional instrument that was agreed by the Council, and this instrument, also the Council and the member states have agreed to have a target for the expenditure on digital, which also, of course, include expenditure for training people with digital skills. This target is set to 20%, so member states are invited to allocate resources and implement reform towards a more digitized society, of course, focusing as well also on providing people with the necessary digital skills from the most basic to the most advanced ones. This is really up to the member state to devise the strategies, but the guidelines are there from the Commission to support them in devising this strategy. And with this, I conclude.
Great, Silvia. Thank you very much. So I think we've managed with the first question to at least have a high-level overview of some of the challenges that we face. I think there was a lot of, as Silvia pointed out, there was a lot of positivity from the panel in terms of seeing that there is a lot of positive momentum and there's a lot of good initiatives underway. But Silvia did highlight the size of the challenge that we have, with 43% of the population still not having any digital skills. Also an interesting observation on how this current pandemic is actually driving digitalization and the challenges that we face there. I want to kind of just sum up on one thing to say. At the start, I talked about a data scientist and this multi-skilled unicorn. And at the end of the conversation, the conclusion I have is we're actually, that particular definition that I provided there was missing things like ethical skills, morality, some of these very, very fundamental skills that are required by individuals as a whole are actually becoming even more critical now as we're making more of these data-driven and AI decisions. And if anything, I think we see the digital skills challenge, but we're actually maybe even creating challenges around more philosophical education that's actually going to be required by our individuals as well, which I think opens up a lot of very interesting possibilities in terms of what's the future worker required. What I'm going to do now is to hand over to Ernestina for the second question, and I think this maybe allows us some opportunities now to dive into some concrete actions that we can suggest as well. So Ernestina, I will hand over to you. I apologize, I'm a little bit late, but I think
thank you. I think that the debate and the discussion is being very interesting. Also, I was just checking at the QA session at HOVA, and some of the things that has been that our panelists has been just telling, and in your conclusion is just state, because we have questions that are asking about that besides all technical skills, what social or moral skills do we need to design big data analytics? So I think that all that we were mentioning about soft skills, ethical skills, is something that is kind of reply, but we can go deeper in this. Also, I mean, I'm just going to read the questions because as we are just a little bit tight on time, I think that I will put the questions that we have together with this, and then we will proceed our panelists again. Okay, so another question is just saying very interesting. If our panelists can point us to any information on the AI skills needed at any user level. They were just mentioning Niels' sons, abilities, and what is exactly needed at the professional level. Okay, and then someone is asking that he's working on visualization for machine learning, and which is the experience of how all these techniques, the most advanced maybe techniques can go and can help companies, and how they can be included. So maybe I think this goes all together with this question that we have in the screen, that we are saying, I mean, I was thinking just, well, you can start in the order that you want, as we are not with much time. I was thinking maybe Mary Cleary, as she's just on the Computer Science Society, she could just tell us these lessons very, very briefly that we have from the computer science that has just been put into primary schools, as we are mentioning, and how we can learn not to wait so longer for AI and for data science. So maybe, well, the floor is yours for the panelists, but maybe Mary, or if someone else wants to contribute, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'll just say a few short words then. Yes, I think that there are certainly lessons to be learned from the late introduction of computer science into school curricula, if we're looking at AI and data science. In Ireland, we are probably lagging even behind many other countries in Europe in terms of the formal introduction of computing, computer science, whatever you might like to call it, in curricula. And that's not to say that there hasn't been a huge amount of very, very good work done over many years in introducing young people to this subject. But it's only very recently that it's actually become a formal subject and now an examinable subject at the end of the secondary school cycle. But I think it's very important to understand, you know, the importance of having this kind of content within the school system for young people, because if they don't experience it, they won't ever want to study it in college. If they don't know what it is, they get their documentation to choose what they're going to study in university or in apprenticeships or whatever type of further education they opt for. But if they haven't experienced computing or IT, they don't know what they're missing in a way, and it certainly doesn't help them to make an informed choice. I think also it's important that we help them to understand what a career in IT really looks like. We talk about people having multiple careers now. But at the end of it, I think it's important. I mean, Rocco said that he wanted to be an important person working in business and not working in the basement, you know, as with all the IT guys. And that's, I think that's a stereotype which is still there. It still exists. And we have parents in particular working with their young children and our young teenagers, encouraging them to choose good quality careers. If they want them to be professionals, they will probably say, well, you're bright, you're going to do very well in school. You study medicine and then you'll be a doctor. Or perhaps if you study law, then you'll be a lawyer at the end of it. Look how important that is. If you go and study computer science, you'll be somebody who works in IT. Because in the English language, we don't have a word like doctor or lawyer or architect really for somebody who works in IT. So there's no real name for the profession. So we've an issue, we've a problem. And it's about identifying the profession. But in that context, because we have these difficulties, which we can overcome, but because we have them, it's very important that we give an understanding of the substance of the domain to youngsters when they're in school and let them see how they can not be consumers of technology, just to coin a phrase, but to be creators of technology.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I think that I was going to say just that maybe from the point of view of the companies, larger or shorter, so Niels and Artur, I was just going to say also this professionalism that we were speaking, this just importance and recognizing the importance of these computer scientists, how from, not only because, of course, I agree with you that as we don't have in the schools, it's very difficult for children to see what is that, and it's always like very weird or very rare, something they are strange people. So from the companies, maybe we can also do well, maybe something, and maybe you can just say, Artur or Niels, what do you think that you can do from there, just to promote, to recognize the value of IT, and just as we are saying, as well, the business person in the company. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe Artur, unless you want to go first, Ernestina, a few shots. Yeah,
please go ahead.
I fully agree with Mary. There is a huge need to attract more people to these roles, and we need to explain better what it is all about. And I guess that we can play a role. Being an IT company, we put a lot of effort also in, let's say, promoting skills to the various target groups. We had a whole week last year with elderly, with immigrants, with people, with children from schools, just to explain basically what technology is, what AIs are. So in that sense, definitely we can play a role, but I think more is needed on a more national level in collaboration between industry and education and public sector to move forward. And maybe it's not just about the more technical skills, as I mentioned earlier. It's much also about all those people that are, at least in the bigger companies, that need to work with the results of the AI. So the consumers, as Mary mentioned as well. And there I would say also, someone said to me, we now teach machines to learn. So we also need to start learning from them in order to remain relevant. And so to develop the skills that can allow us to interact with the machine, so to say. So what are the questions we need to put forward to a machine, to an AI? What do we really want to achieve with those initiatives? I think that's the other interesting part. And those skills are, whether you call them soft skills or interpersonal skills, are something we should start learning kids already early, but also the current workforce needs to be upskilled or reskilled in that area to remain relevant in due course. It starts to get indeed urgent, as Silvia mentioned as well.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Artur?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, I don't see any different from Niels, as just said, from a company that is smaller or from a big company. I think it's all across the board like that. So I guess in the end of the day, well, what is really important, and again, taking the basement comparison that Rocco has said, in in a few decades ago, I mean, people wanted to be that Bill Gates that we saw in Ed's slides. Of course, now they would like to be Bill Gates as well, but for different reasons. But anyway, back then it was there was something mystical about being able to do something with computers, because well, those were the unicorns of the 80s, I would say. And a lot of an aura has been created around this, around IT. I agree with Mary that nowadays the IT professional is not as important as a doctor or as an architect or as a lawyer. I get that. We don't have a cool title like those, but it was different a few years ago, and people expected, I think, too much from IT, from computers, and there is a lot of other areas around IT that need to be addressed. And if I don't want to leave the IT area too much, I would say that things like project management and business analysis would be the differentiated skills for an IT professional to move into those areas. So I guess now you are asking what lessons can we learn from AI and data. It's important to tell people, young people, as I suppose this is the sense of the question, what data and AI is and what it is good for, and what it is not. I mean, people should not expect in the years to come to have those characters that we saw in Hollywood movies that would think and talk and do everything that like a human in the years to come, and that it's not important. That the important thing is that data and AI are so much more valuable than that, and we should focus on that value. So I would say that the lessons that we have to learn here is that we should direct people to what is really about these data and AI enablers that we have at our hands. And so if computer science is arriving to appearing in curriculums right now in some schools or in some countries, I would say that, AI and data should follow closely in a, let's say, integrated manner, so that people can absorb, young people in this case, can absorb that very naturally without making a very big fuss about it. So that is I think the way of dealing with this in the future, so that people are not labeled by being in the basement or being in just an IT professional or just an AI professional, because the unicorns of today will be hopefully for the good of all of us, will be a very numerous population in the years to come, as IT professionals are right now. And it's important that society goes along without seeing this as magical or mystical. So my take here is that I'm particularly personally more interested in growing the population of domain experts. That was one of the classes that were mentioned here, because these domain experts, for sure, they will use whether it's AI, whether it's data, whether it's IT, they will use it in the best manner possible for the good. So let's do this without very naturally, because young people tend to learn very fast, not only on Scratch, but well, you see what they can do on their mobile phones, and you can get it from there. So that's the kind of lessons I would take from IT to the newcomers, AI and data, is that we should look at this naturally and make good use of it. And I didn't talk about ethics here, but maybe later.
Okay, thank you. So So thanks, Artur. So, well, I'm so sorry that, I mean, it's such an interesting debate and we are almost closing, but I would like to give at least 1 minute to Rocco and to Silvia just to have, well, their view, the final view, because I think that the conclusion has been just said, but at least Rocco, because you were mentioning this, that has just fire all this discussion on the basement. So maybe, and you have been working so much on skills and on the, well, skills that are technical, soft skills. So maybe you can go a little bit further on this before just giving the floor also to Silvia, so she can also have her last minute conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernestina. I really will take only 1 minute. And what are the skills, the profiles and skills that are needed in data and AI? I think it's not a matter of making a list of the top profiles, but I think the key today is in understanding the content of profiles. So data scientist is by definition one of the unicorn that we are looking for. I appreciated the slide from Ed where is explained what is a data scientist in terms of content. We have 4 main domain: statistical and stats and maths, database, business, and communication and visualization. It's important to go inside and to have a standardized vision of profiles. Otherwise, each company defines its own data scientist or its own unicorn. Today in Europe, and there are effort in this direction, it's important, at least at the very high level, to agree on what is needed from a professional. And I think this is the key, together with the transversal skills that Mary mentioned. This is the lesson that we can learn from AI and data. To be more specific, one last sentence: the capability that I see in the organization as the key success factor for this professional is the capability to play in the middle between different roles. There is a question about visualization from in the chat you read, and I think the best effort is in understanding the needs of the business. I've seen a lot of data scientists that are passionate of I explain everything and you from the business pick what you need. It's not anymore like that. The data scientist needs to be aware of the decision that their data are going to orientate to address. So the key success factor is the capability of being in the middle of the 4 areas that Ed showed us at the beginning.
Thank you. So, well,
you.
I think that this has been very, very interesting. And I think that Silvia, I mean, I am just taking also a very positive just a feeling of this session. Sometimes we were in the past a little bit more negative on, well, all this gap and so on, but I see we have here the companies, the large, the shorter, and we have just that we have all this enthusiasm. So I will just like to finish with in this position, you are telling us about all this funding that there will be there. And well, just what are your thoughts just to end with? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is indeed very, very exciting, and I'm happy to see this much positivity. So I will not add anything. I think we have all said it. We need more unicorns, and we need more unicorns with all the skills that we have mentioned. I would only add one point. Not only we need more unicorns, but we need those managers at the top floors, and we need all those doctors and lawyers to have more digital skills, because I think that the widespread use of AI and data, this is what is calling for more empowered professionals in all sectors. Now we have doctors using AI every day. They need to know what is behind the algorithm in order to make informed decisions. So those people that you were looking at and those economists, they all need to know more about AI. they all need to know more about data and what is behind the data. This is also why it's very important that these notions and this knowledge is taught at a primary level, so more people can have this basic knowledge, this fundamental knowledge about data, AI, computational thinking, in order to be able to have this basic, or even if they pursue a different careers which is not in IT. So I wanted to close with these remarks, and thank you very much.
So thank you. Thanks to all the panelists. We are just running out of time. And just to conclude, I think that this that has been just mentioned by Silvia, I think that is maybe the main lesson that we have learned from computer scientists, is that we need no matter the domain, all the people, all the professionals to have these digital skills. And of course, now more than digital skills, skills on data, skills on. So the sooner that we can make society put this into the curricula, it will be the better. And then we have to think that it's not only IT what we need, that also we need all these soft skills, these domain skills that we were mentioning, and of course all the ethical, all the elements just to make all this professionalism that Mary was saying, and just all these pillars that in other professions we have. And I think with that, then we will have this recognized person, whatever it is, this, because we need the unicorn, but we need the unicorn recognized. That is something that we were mentioning also here. So well, this has been really enriching, really a positive message. And well, I just have to thank all the assistants, all our panelists once again for having just such a nice view and such a nice discussion. And I give the floor to Ed again, just for the final words. Okay, thanks a lot.
That's great. Just to thank everybody. With a fantastic time, very interesting, enlightening, and inspiring conversation, and many ideas that have come from that. So hopefully we'll take these inputs and we can bring them towards the conversation with the partnership on AI, data, and robotics to see if some of that work could be included in there. So thank you all very much. Take care and have a great day.
The same to you. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.